Welcome back to the Suraj Podcast. We are going to conclude now with the story of this battle. And in the previous episode, we spoke about how Guru Hargobind then battled with the main commander, Lala Beg. And in that duel, Guru Hargobind was able to deceive Lala Beg with a strike going low and then quickly turning his strike, cutting upwards and cutting Lala Beg's head off. So that's where chapter 54 starts, with the entire army of the Mughal side seeing that happen. And when that happened, they all turned back and they started to step back and run away, many of them. So seeing this retreat, Guru Hargobind then sends orders to the army. He says, all right, now go and pounce on them, go run on them and crush these Turks. If they fight, then cut them down clean. But if they drop their weapons, if they try to surrender, they ask for mercy, then leave them. Do not engage them. The army is now without any commanders, and because of this, they can't fight in an organized manner. So in this way, now go, victory is near, and Sri Guru Nanak has protected us all. He says this. And in taking the orders then, the Sikh warriors and Jodharai's warriors, they grab their weapons. It mentions some of them with swords, and the analogy the author gives is that like hawks, they kind of swoop down on their enemies, or like tigers in a forest, they jumped quickly towards their prey, the deer. And as they're doing this, great sounds of kill, kill were roaring across the battlefield. So the text mentions how whoever stayed to fight amongst the Turks, whoever was brave enough, was shot down, or they're quickly, pierced with spears or arrows. And because of this, the ones who were brave enough to continue to fight, well, most of them got killed in a very short period of time. And the text is very graphic about their heads then just rolling around on the battlefield. So in the text, it mentions how some, have their necks chopped, some have their arms chopped off, some their face is just split into two. Some fought back for a little bit of time, and then in realizing that they're kind of helpless here, they began to run back, and as they were running, they threw their weapons in hopes that they would be saved. Some others on the other side were on their knees, with their hands folded, asking for protection of the Guru. Some on the other side were surrendering in a very traditional way in India, which is to put grass in one's mouth. This is an old ritual that warriors used to do at that time to convey that they are surrendering. So the equivalent in the West would be to wave a white flag. So, these warriors are surrendering, some are fighting, some are getting killed. Guru Hargobind then sends Bidhi Chand quickly. He sends him on his horse and gives him specific orders that whoever is surrendering, make sure that my soldiers aren't going there and killing these people. So Bidhi Chand quickly sprints off and caresses the soldiers, and then makes sure that the more enthusiastic Sikhs don't take liberty on those surrendering. And in doing so, he regroups all of the forces, and then he heads back. So as he heads back, they're all yelling out, victory cries and battle cries on the way back. So when they get back to Guru Hargobind, then orders are sent out to pick up the wounded from the battlefield. And as they're doing this, again, the battle drum of victory is sounded off throughout the area. So Jodharai was especially, enthusiastic about the victory, and he's yelling out these battle cries as he's approaching Guru Hargobind. And then when he reaches Guru Hargobind, he bows down his head in salutation. Guru Hargobind then asks Jodharai, how's he doing? Make sure he's not wounded, make sure he's okay. He tells Jodharai now, all right, it's time to go back to the camp, and our job here is done. So they set off to their initial camp around that pond, and all these soldiers now just beaming with ecstatic. They're so happy that the battle's won. And when they get back to the camp, they start counting up the wounded and casualties. So out of all the forces of both Jodhrai and Guru Hargobind, they count up that 1,200 soldiers, warriors were martyred, had attained Shahidi, who were killed in the battle. And at this point, they send out supplies to make sure that the wounded are taken care of as well. Jodhrai was actually a little bit wounded at this point, and Guru Hargobind especially calls him over and takes care of him himself, applies the bandages and stuff. So it talks about how Guru Hargobind then bestowed his grace on all these warriors to heal them, including Bidhi Chand and Malak Jati, who were wounded. And within a few days after all of this, they were all back to normal and healthy. So it says actually in the text that the cowards who threw their weapons on the battlefield as those Sikhs were approaching, who had asked for protection and mercy. So those Stoics were also brought back to the camp, and they were allowed to drink from the pond and eat as well when they got back to the camp with the entire Sikh army as well, which is interesting. And alongside them eating with the Sikh army, Hasan Khan is there. Hasan Khan is if you remember, the messenger, the original messenger from Lala Beg's army. So another order is sent out to pick up the dead soldiers from the battlefield, and Guru Hargobind especially mentions Bhai Jetha, who was a very senior, veteran Sikh warrior who lived in the times of Guru Hargobind, but also during the times of Guru Arjan Dev Ji. So they go and collect his body and the other soldiers who had passed away. Some Sikhs then go into the forest nearby. They collect some logs of wood so that they can do the funeral rites for the bodies. Guru Hargobind then actually, interestingly, orders a large group of Sikhs to go dig a big grave as well, so that they can honor the Muslim funeral rites and bury the dead Turks there. So the 5 generals of that main army, like Lala Beg was the main commander, his younger brother Gambar Beg, and then also Lala Beg's 2 sons, Qasim Beg, Shams Beg, and his nephew Kabul Beg. So these 5 generals were placed on top of all of the Turk Mughal soldiers in that big grave. So Guru Hargobind also, near this big grave and near where the funeral rites, the cremation was going to be done for the Sikh warriors, he asked to make a raised platform as well where he could sit and watch over these funeral rites. So at this point, while they're creating that platform, the Sikh warriors had their bodies cremated at this point. Guru Hargobind also ordered that, interestingly enough, he says, when picking up the bodies of the Turks, the Mughals who had died there in the battle, if they died with a weapon in hand on their person, bury them with their weapon. So nobody is to disarm somebody if they are dead with their weapon on them. So during this time now, there's a big commotion. People are going here and there, picking up bodies. Some are bringing back bodies. Some are bringing back wood. Some are digging that big grave. And during all this time, there was a Sikh, actually from the area of Braj, and he's picking up corpses. Eventually, he comes to Lala Beg's younger brother, Gambar Beg. And Gambar Beg has this really fancy sword. So on the handle, it has all these fancy jewels and gems on it. The blade, it mentions it specifically came from a very far land. It was made of Damascus root steel, very impressive, and it looked just beautiful. So as this Sikh is picking up Gambar Beg's body, he sees the sword and is just like, man, the sword is amazing. I need to take the sword. So he hides it in his clothes. And he hides it because he's afraid that he's going against Guru Hargobind's order here that if somebody dies with their weapon in hand, to bury them with that weapon. So he's a little bit afraid of that. He's hoping nobody finds out, nobody caught him out there. And anyways, he hides his sword, brings the body back. So at this point, they had created that platform, and all the bodies were then put into that grave. At that point, Guru Hargobind then bathes. After the battle, he gets dressed, he gets strapped up with his weapons again. At this point in time, after the battle, after tending to the wounded, doing the funeral rites for the Sikh warriors, it's about evening time. And again, to get everybody together, they beat the battle drum again. And at this point, they put a really fancy fabric down on that raised platform for the Guru to sit on. And then everybody kind of sits alongside and nearby. They ask the Rababi, the musician, to come there and start playing his Rabab. And all the warriors during this time, as the Rabab's playing, some are laughing and talking about what happened on the battlefield. Some are asking Guru Hargobind what happened. Some are praising him during this time. And while these conversations are taking place, Guru Hargobind kind of looks over. He sees that Sikh from Maharaj, and he asks him, he says, oh, that sword that you're hiding over there? You should throw it in that grave that we have set there for the Mughals. It's not right to keep this sword if somebody has died with that in hand. So place it in that grave there. And the Sikh, immediately, he's caught out now, and he doesn't know what to do. He's thinking somebody tattled on him. Somebody saw him do that and then told Guru Hargobind, so he's a little bit angry about that. But at the same time, he didn't want to give it away. He loved the sword, and so he kind of just lied there. He said, what sword? I don't have no sword. I didn't take nothing. And then Guru Hargobind actually curses the Sikh and says that, you know what, you Sikh from Maharaj, fine, you keep that sword because of your greed over that sword. You didn't listen to me. Now in your lineage, a sharp sword will always be swinging. Basically, you'll always be fighting amongst yourselves and strike each other down with weapons. So Kavi Santokh Singh, the author, then says as well that, even to this day, you can see that the people from Maharaj are always fighting each other. This is an interesting side note. So at this point in time, when they're having these discussions, Guru Hargobind has that discussion with that Sikh from Maharaj. It's about late evening time. It's getting really dark now. The funeral rites have been completed here. The Rababi is playing as many residents nearby who had heard of the battle take place came to talk to Guru Hargobind, to give donations to the Sikhs, to the wounded, and etc. So they come in the thousands, it mentions, and as it gets dark, then Guru Hargobind goes back to his tent. And same with the other warriors, they go and sleep at this point. So all of them wake, though, early in the hours of the day of the next day. So before sunrise, they wake up and meditate. It mentions how the Rababi then begins to play his Rabab and then sing Asadivar at that point. So all the warriors at this point are, ecstatic about the victory in battle, and now they're just absorbed in this devotional singing of Asadivar. Some were listening to it, and some were reciting Gurbani. It was saying very attentively. It was as if, it mentions, like a shower of Amrit was being rained down upon the community there. So they're all in the state of ecstasy. They're looking upon Guru Hargobind, and in doing so, it says that their hearts are becoming pure, and their love for the divine only increases as they perform this devotion. So later in the day, after the morning prayers are done and the singing is done, Jodhrai and his brother Slayam Shah, they both return back to their village, Kangar. And so Guru Hargobind is just sitting there now with Bidhi Chand, Malak Jati, and the rest of his soldiers there, just sitting there again in this conversation. Hasan Khan then enters the scene. Hasan Khan being that messenger, originally from the Mughal army. He had switched sides He ends up being extremely useful, helping Guru Hargobind, helping the other Sikhs, identifying strategy, identifying who's coming up to battle and duel. And at one point earlier on, against Jodharai's wishes, Guru Hargobind keeps him in his regiment there to help out, and says that he would make him the commander of Kabul. So Hasan Khan then enters the scene. He claps his hands together, he salutes the Guru and says in a very devotional manner many lines of praise, talking about, oh, you're the creator of miracles, and there isn't anybody like you, you're the giver of all, whatever you desire comes through. And then he asks Guru Hargobind, okay, so basically what has become of me now? What do you ask of me? Please be merciful upon me. Remember, he's still in a state where anything could happen, under a more cruel commander. At that point, they had used him, and now they could just abuse him. They could just end his life right there. So Hasan Khan's a little still worried about this. So he's saying, please have mercy upon me. Please, may I live my life so I always have faith in you. Your praise will be known now throughout the whole world after winning this battle. So Guru Hargobind sees this kind of, I guess he sees into Hasan Khan and the insecurity that he has, so he laughs. Guru Hargobind says that Guru Hargobind laughs at this, and he says, don't worry, basically, Hasan Khan, you're to become the next commander of Kabul. You're gonna replace now Lala Beg. I'm gonna ensure this happens. This is for what you did for us. Like, this is the fruit of your action that you're gonna get. Now, the last thing I ask of you is that you take the remainder of the Turks here who have surrendered and take them to Shah Jahan the Emperor. With you, I'll also send the horses that we confiscated from the Turks during the battle. Go and tell Shah Jahan and the rest of the Mughal army there, whoever the ministers are, that Lala Beg and the other generals who you had sent, they're all dead. So he ends up taking about 100 horses, it mentions, and as well as the remaining Turks there, the Mughals, the soldiers who had surrendered. So before leaving, Hasan Khan then salutes again the Guru. Guru Hargobind blesses him with a saropa, and it mentions a few days for Hasan Khan to get back. They're all exhausted from this travel, from the battle. The soldiers now are returning, humiliated. They don't have their commanders with them, they're dead. Some of them are wounded, some of their clothes are cut up and torn, and they're returning without their weapons either. So this is where chapter 54 stops, and then the next chapter will deal with how Hasan Khan then has that conversation with Shah Jahan and the ministers in Lahore at the fort, and how he is to be appointed the next commander of Kabul. So we'll pick up then.
Sat Sri Akal.